Hi, welcome to this session. Today's session we're going to be talking about dealing with pain and loss. I think we've all of us has dealt with a lot of pain and loss. It's just part of life. It's not all of life, but it's part of it. And today we're going to have Kaz up, should we say, at the forefront, who's had a lot of experience of her own pains and losses, but also she's helped a lot of people deal with pain and loss through therapy and so on. So Kaz, tell us a little bit about how do we deal with pain and loss.
Hi James. We're each individual, so we all react and respond differently to pain and loss. You know, it can be the loss of a loved one, it can be a loss of a job, it can be a loss of a pet, it can be loss of identity. But what it all comes down to is you, the individual, how you handle it, how you treat it, and how you deal with it. I mean, the person, the object, the job, that's gone. But it's how are you left feeling? How are you going to cope? How are you going to deal with what you're feeling? And, you know, the first steps is recognizing it's down to you and you alone. You've got to deal with what's going on within you. Once you sort of honored that and recognized that, I mean, especially of the pain of losing a loved one, you know, that person, you know, especially spiritual people, they sort of have a real sense that there is something else, that they've gone to a better place. So their pain and their loss is not as hard as someone who's not really into spirituality, who doesn't really have an understanding or comprehension of it. But we're feeling the pain, we're feeling, you know, there's so many sort of stages, you know, the anger, the desperateness, the loneliness. And we have to, each of us, deal with that.
I was going to ask you, what are the emotions that are coming up then? I mean, obviously, you mentioned anger. You know, when you lose somebody, for example, for me, I've had uncontrolled anger coming up. How do you handle the anger or other emotions like sadness and so on?
Well, the way to handle the anger is hopefully that you do it in a safe place. We are angry, but we're angry because we're not going to see that person again. They're not there anymore. I mean, they've gone to a better place. And then whether you believe it or not, they're out of the picture. So it's down to you. And you're angry because you want them there. And it's the unfairness of it. It's the unjustness of it. Especially, you know, if it's a child or someone's young. It's funny how we react differently. If someone who's much, much older and lived a life, we seem to be able to handle that better. But we still have the anger. And the anger needs to come out. You know, people need to go for a long walk, to have a good shout, a good scream. But also always recognize you have to own it. It's your anger. It's your beliefs, your feelings towards what's going on. Once you let it out, you leave room in yourself to be able to start thinking about it. You know, why am I so angry that Nan's died? What is it in me that's making me so angry? You know, is it the fact that I'm going to miss them so much? You know, we have such a close bond. They're not going to be there anymore. We have to rationalize it. We have to think it. But not only that, we have to feel it. Then where am I feeling this in my body? Is my, you know, chest really tight? Is it really that emotional thing? Is my stomach hurting? You know, sometimes we have pains in our legs, our arms. It's all parts where the anger's in our body and is creating blocks. So
yeah, or we can get ill. We can get like backaches, or we can get constant colds. I know somebody who's emotionally on a roller coaster, and he's constantly ill. So I suppose our bodies react if we're not handling those negative feelings, and it kind of goes into a kind of an ill state. Is that right? Would you say illness is part of that?
Illness is quite often a very big part of it. You know, people get colds, they get coughs, they get flu, they get headaches. It's all because you've not dealt with it. You know. Especially here, you know, we go to the funeral, we have the wake or whatever you want to term it, and you've done your crying, and you think you dealt with it. But there's so many levels. There is just so many levels of pain and loss. You know, you might strip that onion, do the first level, then you can see someone walking down the road, you can hear a song or a sentence, you either get tearful or you feel that anger welling up again. Because we're so complicated.
You two have both mentioned dealing with it and handling it, but what you both seem to be saying is that one needs to allow it and be with it and give all those feelings space. And, you know, that's so important. It's like, a big dam that is built and the water's rushing against it, and then, if it crumbles, it's the force that comes with that water then is just unbearable. And I think a lot of people are really worried about letting out such huge, depths of emotion and grief, because they're worried it will completely engulf them and they won't be able to handle life, going to the office and leading a fairly normal life when they're grief-stricken. Some people can only keep their head above water by not letting any of those emotions out, and they're worried that if they do, it will engulf them and they'll no longer have control of their lives.
Yeah, there's a great technique for that. Quite often when I work with people who are, really, like you say, Danny, really struggling with withholding that emotion, is you give it time, but then you also put it away. I mean, one of the greatest things to do is you have rooms up in your head. Up in your actual head, just imagine you're going in there and you have lots of different doors. And you'll have one door that's grief and you'll have one door that's pain. You can have a door that says grief and pain. But you open it and you go into it and you allow it to express itself. You cry, you shout, you converse with it, telling it what you're thinking, how you're feeling. But once you've done that, then you shut that door, because it can take over our whole life. And people around us, they don't know what to say, what to do. That's because we each handle it differently. It's like we're out of control when we can take control. And I know that sounds contradictory, because, you've got to let the emotion come out, but it's good not to let it run your life.
I agree, and I think there's a lot to be said for therapy in that context, because if you go and see someone maybe once a fortnight or once a week, then that is that safe place to explore all those feelings. And I think a lot of people worry that if they do go and talk to someone about it, whether it's a therapist or, a friend or an aunt, or that they won't be able to close that door afterwards. But from personal experience, I can say you can close that door, and it actually enables you to continue with your life. I was working in a very stressful job in the corporate field. By going to therapy, I could go back to the workforce and give my best, and it didn't spill over into my work life. And that was, I think, one of my greatest terrors when I started going to see a grief counsellor, was that, once that door's open, it will never be closed, and I won't function, and I won't even be able to drive the car. And in fact, the opposite happened. It was by giving it that space, it meant that I could function in day-to-day life, and so much better than I would have been able to if I had just bottled it all up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there feel very much alone with their pain. I know I did when I started getting in touch with my emotions, and you just think you're the only one, and the other people are, you see people and you think that everyone's cool except me, What happens is that I think we've become, especially in the Western world, we've become too proud to share the fact that, we're feeling vulnerable, scared or whatever. Especially men have a macho image. They've got to be strong, and all the rest of it. And I think also the other issue is that when you're in pain, you have an issue about asking for help. Most people feel too proud or too scared to actually ask for help. And I think that dealing with pain also requires a different sort of mindset. Sometimes you've got to reach out and say, I need help. I know that when I went for a breakdown some years ago, 20-odd years ago, I needed a lot of help, but I was afraid to. I was too proud. I wanted to sort of read books on positive thinking, but none of that worked. What worked was when I actually said, I need help. I'm screwed up. I need someone to sort of hold my hand, sort of thing. And that's a hard thing to do for both men and women, but mostly with men. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I must just say, another good thing to help dealing with pain and loss is to do something physical. Because, you could be stood in the kitchen, sat down watching TV, you can feel all that emotions. You've got all that energy, adrenaline running through you. If you just go for a brisk walk, go for a run, swim, whatever you do, just so you can release it.
And to change your environment at the same time, so you're not just stuck in one spot. I think the least time that we're going to call for help is when we need it the most. I know that whenever I feel really, really bad, the last thing I have is to get up and go to actually change it. You sort of get stuck, and particularly with showing your children, if you're feeling a lot of grief over the loss of someone, you don't want your child to see you in a complete mess, but it's actually really healthy for them to see you feeling feelings. What do you think, Kaz?
Yeah, no, I mean, especially when you think you've got to be the one that's got to be the strong one. It's good to be real. I mean, I've always said that. I've always believed that in life. It's good to be real. You're feeling that pain. In families, they tend to sort of just keep quiet and don't say. They don't upset their mum, they don't upset their dad, brother, nan, whatever. They try to put up this pretense, this facade of everything's okay, when it's not. And in families, it's good to sit around, to get that pain out, to talk about it. But then also to follow that up with, look what Dad brought into our lives. Look, do you remember when Dad did this? Do you remember when Mum did this? Nan did this? Something. But where you feel safe that you can share it, because that's the most important thing. You need to feel safe. I mean, that's why I said at the beginning, if you go for a walk, go in a field, whatever, just shout. I mean, I can remember being really, really angry at my dad when I had a flood in my kitchen. I thought, all right, I'll phone Dad. And I thought, I can't phone Dad. And boy, was I so angry. And I just sat in the middle of this kitchen with all this wet around me, crying my eyes out.
Because he abandoned
you. Yes. So I really sort of had a go at him, and you don't want to do that when someone's passed, do you? You want to look at all the good things. And I was real, even if you were here, I don't suppose you would have come and helped me, blah, blah. But I was just so real. I mean, I felt absolutely shattered afterwards. But I didn't wrap it in roses, Dad, you were the most brilliant person going, because he had his faults. And once I started to open that up, they come tumbling out as well. So it's about being real.
Yeah, I think being real and being honest, just be honest with people, share how you're feeling.
I'd bring something else into it before we wrap up.
Yeah.
We're talking about being honest and being real. I think one of the hardest things when you're in real deep pain is when you meet other people along your path who don't know what to say. They don't know what to say to you. They don't know how to deal with your pain when you do open up and tell them. So they don't help, because you're walking down the street and someone says, you tell them what's happened and they say, well, at least it's a sunny day, or at least you're alive, or people just have to say something positive. They don't like seeing the suffering and feeling that from you, so they want to make you feel better. But that's the worst thing when you're really in pain, because you just want someone to say, that must be really, really hard. You must be really feeling crap. And just put their hand on your shoulder, or just put their hand on your shoulder if they can't find the words to say to you. I think that's one of the reasons people do bottle things up, is that when they do open up and tell someone, that person then has to try and find a positive, and it's like their pain hasn't been acknowledged at all, when that's what you need most.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I totally agree with that. I would much rather someone was honest to me and said, God, you must be so hard for you. I feel for you. And that's enough, because they've honoured it. They've recognised it. They haven't tried to put a Band-Aid on it. Because, as I said at the beginning, it's down to us. It's our pain. It's our loss. We have to deal with it the way that we deal with it. And also, sometimes that hits patterning as well, how it's been handled in the family as you were growing up. And, sometimes that impacts. What do you think, James?
Yeah, how things in the family. But at the end of the day, pain is not bad, is it? It's not. Oh God, I'm a bad person because I'm constantly sad. I think you've got to just step back. You see family issues and so on, and it's just about witnessing that and looking at that, but don't sort of classify it as a bad thing. I think pain is an opportunity to transform. It's not a positive thing either. It's just pain. If that makes sense, yeah. So if you're feeling angry, you're feeling angry. If you're feeling sad, you're feeling sad.
One can feel really frustrated about feeling in pain for so long about something as well. I just want to get out of this pain now, and that kind of makes it a vicious cycle, because you're constantly aware of how much pain you're feeling, and you don't want to feel that anymore, but you don't know how to shake it. But I think if you are feeling it, it's already moving. As soon as you acknowledge something, it starts to shift.
Yeah. What I read once is that you're making suffering out of your own suffering, so it just double impacts on the suffering. That makes sense. We actually suffer about the suffering that we're going through. In other words, we're making a judgment on it.
Yeah, we definitely get into that energy pattern. We get into that way of thinking and feeling, and it can be hard to break. I mean, there's lots of strategies, that can come in and help. But yeah, I fully understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I like your idea, Kaz, of getting out and doing something physical, even if it's just a walk, just to get out of the house or wherever you're at, and change your environment, and try to forgive people when they don't understand, because I've been there too, where you say something positive to someone who's in real dire straits, and then you think, gee, when someone did that to me a number of years ago, I couldn't stand it, and I've just done the same thing because I just didn't know how to deal with their pain. It is a very lonely journey, but you will get through it, and it will change, and the more you acknowledge it and work with it and allow it, it will shift.
I think you summed that up nicely. Pain is real. Pain and loss is real. Honour it. Talk to people about it. If you feel like it's taken over your whole life, take back control. Allow it space. But when it's had that space, put it back and go on, get on with life, because we have to get on with life. That's how it goes. But, there are lots of techniques, and there's, people out there you can talk to, share with, who can help you. You're not alone. We tend to isolate ourselves. Don't think that you're alone.
Sounds good. Good summary and great. I think it's been an interesting conversation.
We'd love your feedback.
Any feedback, leave comments below on under this video. That would be fantastic. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.